Good evening and welcome to Mello TV. I'm your host, Nicole Hales. Thank you for joining us for this evening's highly anticipated Mello TV poll conducted by Bill Johnson. Joining the discussion is our very credible and renowned pollster, Bill Johnson. Also tonight to analyze the findings and make their predictions are political analyst Paul Bourne and former People's National Party General Secretary Paul Burke. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Tonight we'll be looking in which direction the Jamaican people think the country is going. Is it going in the right direction or the wrong direction? The numbers tonight will have you talking. Also, we will be discussing the most pressing national problems and the greatest needs of the Jamaican people. Before we get into the numbers, Bill, give us a bit of a breakdown to how the poll was conducted.
Certainly. We interviewed 1,176 residents of Jamaica living in 84 different communities. The interviews were conducted January 14th to the 16th, and the sampling error is plus or minus 3%. Basically, we started off the survey just as when you go to the doctor usually takes your temperature, the first thing the doctor does. Well, in effect, we took the temperature of the Jamaican public by asking them, generally speaking, do you think the country is going in the right direction or the wrong direction? And we had done this a year and a half ago when we did our other survey, and comparing the results, it's really quite interesting. Last year, or in 2020, 40% of the people said things were going in the right direction, 34% in the wrong direction. So in effect, the temperature for the country was a +6. This February, you asked the same question. 16% said the country was going in the right direction. 62% said it was going in the wrong direction. So the temperature is in effect a -46. Needless to say, when our survey was conducted in July of 2020, it sort of portended a big victory for the government just based on those numbers. And of course, that's what happened. Things don't look as optimistic at this point, obviously, when you have a -46 temperature. I think this is even more important. I was checking back to a survey that I'd done in January of 2016, which is, as you may remember, the PNP was the government at that point. And at that time, 20% said the country was going in the right direction, 63% said it was going in the wrong direction, and 17% said they didn't know. So the temperature was in effect a -43. So that looks very close to what the temperature is today for the Jamaica Labour Party. So I would not be very sanguine about these numbers if I were the JLP.
Bill, very credible and comprehensive data finding. So tell us, as it relates to the percentage of Jamaicans who responded to the question, do they think Jamaica is going in the right direction or the wrong direction? What are those numbers showing?
What do you mean in terms of what? I mean, basically, 16% say the country's going in the right direction. 62% say it's going in the wrong direction, which is a ratio of 4 to 1 wrong to right. And as the survey progresses, we get a pretty good indication of why these people are feeling the way they are, just through answers to the various questions that we're asking them.
Bill, let's break down the numbers as it relates to the supporters of the JLP and the PNP and how they surveyed on this topic. How did the JLP supporters and the PNP supporters that voted in the 2020 general election poll on this question?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Nicole. People who voted for the JLP have a minus 14 temperature. In other words, 32% say the country's going in the right direction. 46% say it's going in the wrong direction. Mind you, these are people who voted for the JLP. People who voted for the PNP, obviously the numbers are quite different. 6% say the country's going in the right direction. 81% say the country's going in the wrong direction. So that has a temperature of minus 75. And for those who didn't vote, 13% say the country's going in the right direction. 62% say it's going in the wrong direction. So that's sort of in the middle between the two. And that has a temperature of minus 49. But at this point, now just as when you go to the doctor, the temperature is just one indication of your health. But if your temperature is, if you're running quite a fever, that's not a good sign. And so you really have to look further, more in depth in terms of just figuring out what's wrong with the patient. And that's what our survey does in terms of the government here.
Good evening, Mr. Burke, and thank you for joining us. All right, so as it relates to the question, the percentage of Jamaicans who responded, do you think Jamaica is going the right direction or the wrong direction? Those numbers are showing in July 2020, 40% of Jamaicans said Jamaica was going in the right direction. In February 2022, that number was 16%. For wrong direction, July 2020, 34% of Jamaicans responded. In February 2022, 62% said Jamaica was going in the wrong direction. And for the persons who said they don't know, in July 2020, that number stood at 26%. In February 2022, that number is 22%. Mr. Burke, is this good news for the People's National Party? And how will this affect the favorability of the JLP?
I would like to start, well, good evening, first of all, everybody. I believe Jamaicans are more honest about their views. We are not asking political questions between two political parties. And because it's a period where I believe that there are no direct political questions being asked, people have been very honest with their views. I don't know that because Jamaica is going in the right direction or wrong direction, it reflects on either party totally. Because yes, the government has to be held accountable most of all for the wrong direction. It is a difficult period in Jamaica with the COVID-19 pandemic, and some people, although they believe it's going in the wrong direction, will rationalize that is because of the period we are going through. That is not my view, however. And I believe outside of excellent public relations, the government has made some unfortunate mistakes. And that is one of the reasons why many Jamaicans feel we're going in the wrong direction. There's just one thing I want to say.
46% of JLP supporters said the country is going in the wrong direction. Are these numbers surprising to you?
No, it's not surprising to me. But that don't mean that they will not be voting for JLP. Even though they believe it is going in the wrong direction. It would be up for the PNP to show, to demonstrate that we can do better, right? For JLP people to vote for PNP, they may stay home. But I don't want to get into the PNP, JLP analysis right now. I think Jamaicans generally support the numbers that the country is going in the wrong direction. And one of the numbers that you have not revealed yet, so I won't go into it, I was surprised. Everything else that Mr. Johnson did, I think, was credible, except the cost of living numbers. And he will probably explain that afterwards. But certainly with where we are with crime, I think that is very disconcerting. I think it has affected everybody. Everybody wants to see a drastic reduction in crime. I think the economy, people are having a difficult time. And the fact that the government does not even raise the minimum wage, it impacts on people. I believe that people's standard of living, quality of life have gone down in many areas. So people will say the country is heading in the wrong direction.
Mr. Burke, how can the PNP capitalize on this declining confidence in the JLP-led government, and how can the PNP convince the people that they can lead the people in a better direction?
As you know, I'm not in the leadership of the People's National Party, but I believe the party is positioning itself to show, not to capitalize on the JLP's mistakes, but to demonstrate that we can do better, right? And I believe that many persons would now be willing to give the PNP a chance again. Once it can prove by its policies, it will do better. I think some progress has been made, not enough as yet, in that direction. So the things that people are going to want to see is that what will PNP do to reduce crime in this country? What will we do to grow the economy? And what will we do to give Jamaicans a better quality of life? Not just a minority, but the majority of people, too many of whom, 60 years after independence, are still living below the poverty line.
So do you think the JLP-led government can regain the confidence of the Jamaican people in bringing the country in the right direction?
I don't know you can fool all the people all the time, but I believe when they go out to campaign and they have a bling and buy campaign, everybody knows it is not a secret, right? That they will be able to regain some of their support. But I believe that PNP is regaining their support at a much faster rate than the JLP is either losing support or regaining their support.
Political analyst Paul Bourne, the views of the people changed so much since 2020 to now. Was it due to solely the Prime Minister's popularity, then to the performance of the government as a whole? No. Or are there other contributing factors?
There are many factors that are contributing to what is happening to the government now. And one such factor is matter relating to crime. And you can see that just about every day in the news, and the extent of which the crime is actually taking over Jamaica. So that is a critical factor that is actually destroying the worth or value that the Prime Minister had when he actually gained power initially.
Mr. Bourne, the numbers, the question that asks, do Jamaicans think that the country is moving in the right or wrong direction? In July 2020, 40% of Jamaicans said the country was moving in the right direction. In February 2022, 16% said the country is moving in the right direction. 34% said the country is moving in the wrong direction in July 2020. As at February 2022, 62% said the country is moving in the wrong direction. 26% said they don't know in July 2020. 22% say this year, February 2022, say they don't know. Mr. Bourne, this percentage, does it prove that the JLP government have not gained the electorate that they have voted for and in the last election, but rather lost them to the PNPs?
No, I do not think it is that matter. I think it's totally different in the sense that it's relating to the environment that is actually going on at the moment, and not really that they are favoring the People's National Party, all right, or otherwise. Because the COVID-19 scenario, which has actually impacted on Jamaica from March 10, 2020, has substantially damaged the brand of the Jamaica Labour Party. and not necessarily favor the People's National Party. So we want to sort of make that distinction, that not because one side of the coin is that people are do not think the Coventry is moving in the right direction. It means that they think that the PNP can actually do a better job. That's another matter. So that can actually be discussed. But it is clear from what has happened, and I've done extensive work on the matter relating to COVID-19, and persons thought Mr. Holness and his team handled the COVID matter wrongfully. And that has destroyed it substantially. See, inside the figures here is almost 100% decline in terms of what is happening in terms of the country moving in the wrong direction. And a substantial part of that is how the government dealt with the COVID-19 situation.
Can they regain the confidence? Can they regain the numbers? And how can they do so?
It is going to be a difficult task in the sense that up to now, Mr. Holness has not come out definitively as exactly what the position of the government is now on the COVID-19 scenario. And a number of persons are wondering what direction he's going to take. And I have done extensive research to actually say to the government, be cautious in actually how you actually put forward your perspective on the COVID-19 scenario, because a number of Jamaicans are not supporting the COVID-19 for whatever reason, the mark of the beast, and other issues that are actually had on social media. So because of that, it has destroyed Mr. Holness substantially, in particular the Jamaica Labour Party. But what is happening to the People's National Party now, they are actually caught at in the blocks, because they have done nothing or little or nothing related to putting themselves out there. So do the people see them as more favorable? Well, that is something that we can actually research, or maybe your poll can actually look at that. But currently what is happening now is substantially as a result that people do not think the government handled COVID-19 situation properly, as well as the crime matter that is actually riddling our country.
Another question, are these numbers an indication of how the electorate feels when compared to the 2020 general election compared to now?
No, totally different issues altogether, because these are indications in terms of where the country is and not necessarily their preference for voting. Now, in other words, it is the same person with two different hats. And at the moment, we're looking at the hat in terms of, is the country moving in the right direction? And this is across the board, whether you're JLP or PNP. People are saying Jamaica is moving in the wrong direction. So it's not a party issue. But if we were to disaggregate the figures in terms of supporters of the People's National Party, the Jamaica Labour Party, then that would give us more indication statistically as to what their views are politically on the matter.
So do you think the government has what it takes to regain the confidence in the Jamaican people in bringing the country in the right direction at this time? Wow,
that one requires 24 hours in terms of to think about that one. But let's look at what is happening in Jamaica here, because if the government was actually listening to a number of researchers, including myself, in terms of what they should have done and what they should have gauged in terms of their words, they wouldn't have actually got themselves in this position. Because one such thing is a matter relating to mandatory vaccination. And a number of Jamaicans to date have indicated that they will not be vaccinated only because of the promulgation that there's going to be mandatory vaccination. That crippled the government, and not so much the Jamaica Labour Party. So it crippled the government and crippled the perspective of the party. Now, because the party is grappling with this matter, including the matter relating to all this unsolved crime, all this escalation in crime, I think what is happening to them now is they are in the mode of thinking what next to do, as against having a policy from long ago as to how to deal with a number of these issues. So do they have the ammunition? Do they have the will? Do they have the capacity to actually make the difference? Yes, they do. But it requires some harsh decisions. And some of those harsh decisions relating to how they're going to deal with crime. And they don't want to deal with that.
Bill, let's look at the most pressing national problems and the greatest needs of the Jamaican people. What are the numbers showing and what are the percentage?
Okay, well, what they're showing, first of all, is that in our survey in July, 70% mentioned crime, which is an incredibly high number. Well, it's gone even higher today. It's 82% who mentioned crime as one of the most pressing national problems. Jobs were mentioned by 67%. That's shaded down a little bit to 54%. I think some of that is remember our survey in July was taken right when COVID was really hitting the country. There was a great fear of job loss among people, and I think that's sort of been mitigated a little bit. Road conditions basically have more than doubled to 27% in terms of an issue. COVID itself has gone from 45% to 24%. Water issues have stayed the same, basically, at around 16%. Another issue that's really popped up, though, and I think it's because of the issues that we've had with the economy recently, is COVID has, helping the poor has basically gone from 8% to 16%, and cost of living is now 9%, education 8%, corruption has remained constant really at 6%, and healthcare at 4%. Now, this whole issue of crime, I once again went back to some previous surveys I conducted, and it's amazing. In November of 2011, 25% of the people mentioned crime as a major issue, and we thought that was high back in 2011. In January of 2016, right before the general election, 50% mentioned crime. Now, in our poll a year and a half ago, as I mentioned, 70% mentioned crime, and now we're up to 82%. I mean, we can only go to 100%, but it's certainly this, with the government and the people have to do something to get their hands around this crime problem.
Speaking on the issue of crime, let's delve into that. Crime has always been an issue that is high on the Jamaican people's minds. But over the period of 2020 to 2022, it has increased to 82%. Road conditions, poverty, help for the poor have doubled over that period as well. What is your analysis of the numbers? And let's start with, what do you think is the most critical of them right now?
The issue of crime is a fundamental concern for Jamaicans. I did a study with a number of other persons when I was at a particular institution in Jamaica some time ago in 2007. And of 1,338 Jamaicans, we found out that crime was the #1 problem. A matter of fact, it was 7 out of every 10 Jamaicans indicate that crime was a problem, followed by unemployment and education. And what I'm seeing here now, it appears that everything technically obtains or continues as is. So if you look at the figure that you're looking at crime, this is nothing special, because we have been having this crime problem for a number of years now. A matter of fact, a part of this crime problem that a number of persons do not even look at is the matter relating to rape. Rape in Jamaica is almost 2 times that of murders, you know. But people don't look at these things. So a number of persons are actually suffering in silence. And do not forget that a number of the persons who are actually being raped are not the old-time situation in terms of females only. Males are being raped by males and sometimes by females. A number of these persons are not able to speak, or because of the society structured, are not speaking. So the crime matter is fundamental to Jamaicans, not only because of the actual event, but because of the fear associated with crime. Because, of course, crime, particularly homicide or murder, mean death. And we're all technically afraid of dying, afraid of death. So what is happening here is the figures that you see on the paper here is a clear indication of a matter that Jamaicans have been saying that they want to address for centuries, for months, for years. Because the crime problem in Jamaica didn't start today. It started during the period of slavery and has actually fermented and actually becoming even more extensive in the last, say, 50 or 100 years. Which is a matter that we have to address. And the matter has to be addressed urgently and now. But when you look at the matter relating to jobs, that one has fallen in terms of unemployment, all right? But we need to understand clearly, COVID, which has actually come, has really masked a number of the challenges that Jamaicans are having. because inside COVID is the matter relating to unemployment, reduction in salary. So that COVID matter is taking out a number of the figures that you'd have actually seen before relating to jobs and other things. So COVID has now become a new head and a new topic. That's a part of people's discussion.
So every government wants to reduce crime. Every minister of national security genuinely wants to reduce crime. So it is a national issue. I believe the government could have done far more in seeking the collaboration of the opposition, which has offered it several times, and it has chosen not to do it. So they want the entire credit, and it should not be about credit, it should be about Jamaica, in that the JLP has reduced crime. And everybody knows that no one government causes crime, and no one government by itself can reduce crime. They are late on the job with a lot of the legislation, very late. And they made mistakes in their first year in 2016. You remember they cut the security budget and said it was not necessary. Then they brought in used cars, which were never delivered to the police. And they have done a lot of things to really diss the police. One of the things I believe that, very quickly, that would help the crime situation is to really strengthen the police force as a professional organization. And its training, its salary, its conditions of work, all of those things. We need an effective police force. And they have done exceptionally well with the resources and with their situation. But forgive me to just say, we won't deal with crime in this country, right, in any real meaningful way until we deal with injustice, inequity, racism, classism, and the social justice that still exists in too many ways when we as young people in the 1960s were fighting against Babylon. Babylon is still alive and real in Jamaica in terms of exploitation, in terms of its injustice, in terms of its racism, in terms of its classism, and the inequality of the society. Until you deal with those issues in a meaningful way, we are going to have a crime problem.
Some very strong numbers coming out in this evening's findings, Bill. Tell us, what can we expect tomorrow and what topics will we discuss?
Tomorrow we're going to introduce how the government's doing in terms of the whole fight against COVID, how people feel about vaccinations, and the next two nights are basically going to be about the whole COVID situation in Jamaica. I think people are going to find some very surprising and incredibly interesting numbers with what we come up with over the next 2 days, or next two
Definitely looking forward to those numbers come tomorrow. There you have it. To get the answers to these and other topics tomorrow, join us for the Mello TV Bill Johnson poll, and also listen to Mello FM and to Rhythm Newscasts for the recap. I want to thank this evening's guests, Paul Burke, political analyst, and Paul Bourne, former General Secretary of the People's National Party, and our pollster, Bill Johnson. I'm Nicole Hales on behalf of the entire production team. Thanks for watching.